praising God for giving us the strength to get through the difficult things. Like for me, I keep saying I don't want one of these to be less than 5 minutes, so hopefully this is one. And so I'm going to cut the summary short by saying let's title this chapter Ezekiel 33, Their Heart. I've already entitled the chapter that. What do we really want to call it this time? I forgot. What are we calling it? Yeah, it's Their Heart. I think it really is. Yeah. It's their heart, because literally verse 31 is going to say their heart is set on their gain. And this chapter makes it easy for me to hopefully, if I can resist the temptation to preach it, just keep it to 5 minutes by saying it breaks down in 3 sections once again. I'm going to start at the end, though, because that section that talks about how their heart is set on their gain makes it really difficult for Ezekiel to do his job. This chapter, once again, reminding us of chapter 3, calling him to be a watchman for Israel. This time giving him an illustration for a literal watchman in much the same way that God gave Egypt an example through an illustration or an allegory of Assyria being a cedar that was cut down. He's saying once again, he has one standard for all people. And just like he illustrates to the nations the consequences of doing wrong, he's illustrating to his servant Ezekiel the consequences of not speaking when God has called him to talk. But the comfort, I guess, comes in another repetition or review of a previous prophecy, that being Ezekiel chapter 18, I think it is. That's right. And the repentance portion of the soul who sins will die prophecy, meaning that God said, even though they had gotten into the habit of believing that children would suffer for the sins of their fathers, he reassures them that the soul who sins will die. You don't have to worry about what someone else did causing you to have to suffer for or the penalty for their sins, but you do have to worry about picking up the habits they might have set down for you. And so the repentance portion reminds us that no matter how bad you might have been, if God has given you another day to turn from doing wrong to be a just person of integrity, then that is going to set you on the path to basically the gospel of God, giving you a new opportunity, forgiving you and setting you on the path that leads to life. But if you have, no matter how long you've been doing it, if you have been doing right, and you decide you're going to turn towards a path of injustice and wrongdoing, for whatever reason, he's saying that is going to lead to places that are not good, even if it is you, Ezekiel, my ad lib. And so in this chapter, where we're coming up on 3 minutes, and I think I can close it out inside of 5, the thing that caught my attention most is the fact that Ezekiel's job as a watchman is really simple enough, but for the resistance in the hearts of the people to whom he is called to speak. Understanding that being a watchman just requires you to talk about what you saw. But as we have mentioned from time to time, the maturity of understanding that real life has real problems is that not everybody wants to hear what you are seeing, especially when it's calling them to make changes they just don't want to make. So understand that the challenge to Ezekiel is not simply seeing and saying, it is enduring all of the drama that goes along with saying stuff people don't want to hear. And you probably heard it before, but it's a whole lot tougher to cling to in the way of a life lesson when you're really dealing with, as we mentioned from time to time, the backlash, the retaliation, the backbiting, the fill in the blank with all the petty responses that can go along with people having to hear things that they'd rather not. Things that do not seem to have a natural fit with what they want when, as this chapter reminds us, their heart is set on their gain.